Welcome into the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, the Draft Recap Special Edition. We're coming to you a couple days earlier this week. We wanted to get out some fresher takes here and not wait until Wednesday. So we're going to break it all down, draft winners, losers, and some fantasy fallout, all here over this next hour here on RotoWire. Welcome back into the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, John McKechnie, joined as always by Mario Puig. We're sponsored by Dynasty Owner for this episode, so check them out. We'll get to them a little bit later on. But Mario, a couple things here. So we're kind of the boots on the ground guys as far as the draft goes over here at RotoWire. How are you feeling 48 hours removed or so from the draft? Are you recovered? Are you refreshed? Did you catch up on some sleep?
I didn't catch up on any sleep, but the draft itself was a lot less stressful than it was, especially I've been doing it for a while, I don't even remember how long, 10, 12 years or something at RotoWire. And back in the day, granted, we used to do fewer notes back in the day. I feel like we only did something what would it have been? Something like 150 notes per draft, maybe. But then at some point, we ended up getting the order to do every pick. And I used to do that for a year or two, and then quickly they got you in the fold. And even that was pretty difficult. So we had a little more help with Joe Bartle and was it Jordan? What is it?
Jordan Mazzara.
Okay, I thought that's what it was, but I didn't want to just butcher it. But yeah, those guys helped us out a lot, which was awesome. So yeah, I'm feeling battered, I guess, but it's not for the draft reasons. It's for everything else. But yeah, it was normally the worst day of the year for me by far was day 3 of the NFL draft. And I think this might be the first year where I don't even say that.
Yeah, it went smoothly. Again, big thanks to Joe and Jordan for pitching in on that, of course. But yeah, to me, the draft kind of feels like the professional world equivalent of finals week, where you've been studying all semester, but it doesn't really help with your stress. The bottom line is you're just going to have to be on for a lot over the next couple of days. You got to be at your sharpest. So my brain was totally oatmeal by the end of it. I think I wrote up Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, so last pick of the draft, and forgot to do all the database stuff that's we're supposed to be adding him to the depth chart and stuff like that. I was just nope, my brain just simply does not work at the moment. I'm just bloviating about.
I thought you were gonna say that you did a fry-brained pun, this is a Purdy pick or something. Pretty
good, yeah.
Yeah. And with that, sorry.
With 10 more picks, I think that absolutely would have happened. So it's best for all parties that it ended at pick 262. I want to say. And then my last other question for you before we get rolling into some of the draft winners and losers. Do you have a budding feud with Marlon Humphrey on Twitter?
I doubt he cares who I am, but I'd have to make fun of him for a little while more yet because of him trying to put down undrafted guys who I don't know. He was making fun of them for saying oh, I've got that fire. I'm gonna make it. I got that chip on my shoulder, and it's why are you making fun of them? They're let them have some hope. Some of them aren't gonna make it. You don't need to put them down. And it was a short fuse kind of thing for me because I was look, maybe somebody else said that, I'd let it go. But if it's the guy who is especially recently anyway well known for going on Twitter to talk about how he's getting ripped off by the monkey cartoon people. It's just offensive. You can't be blowing $250,000 on a stupid monkey cartoon and then making fun of if they're going to burn out their $5,000 signing bonus, by the end of the month because their family's got things to worry about. Yeah, I was just no. You're the monkey cartoon guy. You don't get to make fun of these people.
That is kind of a rich little dynamic there.
But he had that funny tweet too, where he's as a man who is constantly defrauded and is fooled on a daily basis, tricked into believing a number of false identities by the hour, Yeah, that was the catfish guy. I didn't even know who that
Yeah.
guy was. I never followed up with.
I
The
believe
whole
so.
thing.
Yes. So yeah,
Okay.
the double catfish from the same person. I believe is what he was saying. So pretty funny stuff there. But yeah, Humphrey, pretty funny guy on Twitter. But I think that you weren't out of line to call him on the hypocrisy there a little bit. So let's get into it. Who in your mind were the big winners and losers from this draft?
I thought there were a lot more losers than winners. I thought one of the clear winners was your team, actually, John, the Ravens. And I guess that's how it goes most years. I can't really remember the time. I guess Hayden Hurst was the last time I was like, what the hell is wrong with the Ravens? What are they doing? What are they thinking? And then that, of course, only lasted 6 picks or whatever it was. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm still mad about it, but I no longer I rescind the fatwa or whatever, at least. They've pretty much dominated, I don't know, 10 years of drafts. And this one was one of their better ones yet, I think. I wasn't even a fan of Linderbaum exactly. Not that I was against him. I just thought a center like him, I think, is that worse like every 3 years kind of thing. I think there are some guys you look at and you're like, oh, this is a once every 5, once every 10 type. And I don't think Linderbaum is that, but the Ravens have such a well-constructed roster already that adding a merely good player at a position of need is a pretty big, it pays off more for them than it would have been for like a bad team adding Linderbaum, I think, and trading back before getting him. The other picks were just kind of, just a lot of solid, just good idea picks and a high volume of them too. I thought their worst one was Charlie Kohler from Iowa State, just because he was so weird when I watched him. He was so much different than I thought he would be, because on the height, weight, the depth charts or whatever, he was initially, for the past couple of years anyway, he was listed at like 6'6", 265 or something like that, and he turned out to be 6'7", 250. And so when you see a big tight end who's like 260, 255 plus, and catching a ton of passes the way Kohler did at Iowa State, normally that's a pretty top-notch tight end prospect. But then I think, as it turns out, when you turn on his tape, he was just kind of making a lot of catches, even though he didn't really know what he was doing, just because he is a 6'7" guy who runs a 4.62. And that's a certain level of usefulness. I don't think he's like a bum or anything. It's just that you would think a guy like that would just dominate. And instead, when I watched him, I thought it looked Dan Arnold, like a better Dan Arnold, like a Dan Arnold who is actually a tight end and not just a receiver who can't line up outside. So that was a weird one, and I'm not exactly high on Isaiah Likely, but I do like the vision of it, and I like the premises underlying it. Like I think they do need to get more quality tight end reps if they're not going to get the underneath passing game going. Again, and Roman doesn't seem like he's going to. So if they're not going to make teams pay for playing like too high off coverage with 5 defensive backs every single snap, then they have to be able to run better than they did last year. So getting the running backs back helps, of course, but also being able to put quality tight end 3 and 4 reps on the field, freeing up Andrews to play more receiver and offset the loss of Marquise Brown. That's actually a vision I'm pretty fond of. I think that could really work well if just one of Kohler or Likely turn out to be useful. And there's a decent chance they're both kind of good backup role player types.
Yeah, I think I just kind of had the visceral reaction of like, if you take Charlie Kohler, why are you taking Isaiah Likely? But
yeah,
but at
I started.
the same time,
I was just gonna say, like, that was a point in the note writing process where I think I wrote up Likely but not Kohler. And when the Likely pick came up, and I you kind of go on autopilot for little bits of time, and I sort of came to, and I'm looking at this finished Isaiah Likely note, and it says he's going to the Ravens, and I'm like, wait a second. I must have mixed this up. Kohler went to the Ravens, and then I started to like unravel like for a second there before I was able to like, wait, no, they both went. It's fine. I thought I was gonna have to like undo the note and the admin and like who knows what else, whatever fires would have come out of that.
Yeah, that's always a scary thought, because you really do feel like you're kind of just in the belly of the whale when you're at like pick 150 and you have like another 100 to go, and it's like, did I just miss something, and just like throw off the whole order the rest of the way. But yeah, I think in a vacuum, I like both those players. I thought those were good picks. I thought Daniel Faele was a worthwhile test. Super interesting guy. Like when the Athletics started, he was kind of like the centerpiece of like their college football like discussions and stuff. It's just like, there's a mammoth Australian down at IMG Academy let's take a look see and see if he
that was the
anything.
genesis of the freak list back because they heard about him in like middle school or something when he was only 6'7".
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like they said, I was reading some more background on him, and apparently he like went to Hawaii when he was like a young teenager and got like a Division I offer on the spot from like the Hawaii coach and like all this other stuff. So I mean, just an absolute giant person. So it's sort of reminiscent of the Orlando Brown pick potentially. We'll see if he has any qualms with playing on the right side. I don't think he should, given that he played on the right side at Minnesota. But yeah, no, I thought that was an interesting pick. Taking Stout as the first punter, so that this shows that we're probably near the end of the Ravens discussion. But I thought that was a little bit funky. I know that Matt Ariza from San Diego State was kind of considered to be the punter of this class. But
I'm sorry, was the criticism with him like I don't even know anything about these guys. I didn't look at the punters, but I remember reading something on Twitter. I wish I could remember who it was. Something about like Ariza's best punts were in parts of the field where the new age analytics say you should go for it anyway. And like
that wouldn't check out to me, but obviously this person looked into it, but like Ariza is known for being able to punt it like 70 yards. So like,
that doesn't make any sense.
So that,
I would have picked him.
Yeah. If you're so
huge punts are awesome.
Poisoned, yes. If you're analytics poisoned that you think that like you need to go for it on your own 25, then like I don't know, go back to the drawing board.
That doesn't check out then. But it would. I can imagine people saying like, oh, he's losing net yardage because he's punting it too far sometimes or something. Like I don't care if I'm at my own, especially if I'm in my own like 20-yard line or back further. If I can kick it through the other team's end zone, that's awesome because they're like, oh crap, how did he just kicked it right back to our side? It sucks. We thought we had them.
Yeah.
I don't even care if he just like has no accuracy at all. It's like I just like the idea of just reversing the field whenever I want.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like there's a reason why San Diego State was like as bad offensively as they were this year and still like a bowl eligible team. And like, I wonder what the punt war is. Yeah, it really kind of was. It was always trippy. Like you turn on San Diego State, late Saturday night, some Mountain West action, and like he's kind of the main attraction of that game. Is very
dangerous situation for Colorado State as they have the Aztecs pinned at their own 2-yard line, and Ariza is coming onto the field.
Oh God, yeah. So I mean that's actually not even that far out of bounds on it. Who else I thought did well? I thought Indianapolis had a good draft. They didn't have a first round selection, but I liked the guys that they got. I thought all of them were pretty valuable. I like Alec Pierce. I like Jelani Woods. Bernard Ryman is someone who I whiffed pretty bad on that. I put him in the first round in my first mock. Didn't put him in the second one, but getting him at 77, I think that's fine. I like Nick Cross a lot out of Maryland as well.
Yeah, I'm not like a huge fan of Jelani Woods exactly. I thought he maybe went a little early, but I like the vision that they're indicating with that pick too, because Alec Pierce, the second round pick, I know some people weren't so high on that selection, but I thought it was good, and I think he fits well with what they should be doing, which, in my opinion, of course, is feature Jonathan Taylor. And I think one of the ways you make Jonathan Taylor even more dangerous is having Mo Alley-Cox and Jelani Woods on the field. And the way I would run an offense in the NFL, especially with all this too high stuff that we're seeing now, is I would want to just have, huge, fast, strong guys at the bookending my tackles, basically, and have this ambiguity before every snap, whether I'm going to bash it between the tackles or throw far down the seam with, in this case, we have Mo Alley-Cox and Jelani Woods. They're both huge guys. They are huge for tight ends, both of them, and they're both athletic by general tight end standards, let alone tight ends as big as they are. So if those guys are getting, 20, 30 pounds on the linebackers that they're sealing in the run game, that's giving Taylor, angles to work with, breaking runs outside. That's harmful for the defense. And to adjust to that, they have to make their own defense bulkier and play closer to the line of scrimmage. And that's at once kind of what you have to do against that Woods, Mo Alley-Cox kind of look. And it's also not something it's not a situation you want to end up in, because they're still probably a lot faster than the guy you're putting on them then, because if you're putting someone who's the same size as Woods on Woods, it's highly unlikely that he moves the way Woods does. So
Exactly.
I think like bashing in the middle with the two big tight ends a lot, and then working in, deep shot play action passes to a guy like Pierce, who on those run plays, by the way, being 6'3", 211, he's going to have a weighted and reach advantage over the corners that are covering him. I think it's just a lot of good personnel for keeping a defense just uncomfortable all the time.
100%. So yeah, I really like the way that Indianapolis has kind of approached this whole offseason. I think that Matt Ryan is definitely an upgrade.
He's gonna have a really good year, I think.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to acquiring some shares of his. Commenter Clipboard Jesus notes that this could be that the Woods pick in particular probably spells trouble for one Kylan Granson, but that's more for your two tight end dynasties.
Yeah, I think it's just that they have two different tight end positions. There's the inline subtype, and there's like the so-called move subtype. And Granson's clearly the second one. So he basically doesn't play the same position as Mo Alley-Cox or Jelani Woods. If he's on the field instead of one of the two, it's because it called for a different formation than the other two.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. Yeah, hold out a little bit of hope there, but yeah, I mean the investment in Woods seems to suggest that it's
also possible Woods doesn't play that much. Like he could just be more. They only have a 1-year restricted free agent. Oh wait, did they sign Mo Alley-Cox to a 3-year deal? I can't remember, but they might view Woods as more like a developmental guy in case Mo Alley-Cox is out or that walks in a couple of years or whatever.
I mean, in fairness, like it did take Woods a while to break out, and it took him basically transferring to a Virginia system that smartly for him, he saw how they used Tony Poljan and was like, okay, like I'm gonna go check that out. But it worked out beautifully for him. He got picked in the 3rd round, so that's good. But it's worth noting that someone who has the kind of unique frame that Woods does, there could be a bit of a steep learning curve when it comes to playing the position in the NFL. Kansas City, another team that we talked about a little bit before the show, as one that you liked. That they obviously had those 2 first-round picks. I think a lot of people were expecting them to go ahead and take a receiver with one of those. But when you have 6 receivers go in the first 18 picks, and I felt the same with the Packers too, very similar boat, having those 2 picks in the 20s, where it's like, okay, they walk away without a receiver despite needing one. But if they took one with either of those picks, it would have been a pretty colossal reach. So I think it made sense the way that the board fell to them to just try to fortify those other positions. So, in Kansas City's case, getting Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis in the first round is pretty sweet.
Yeah, I really liked both of those picks, even though I'm not really a McDuffie fan exactly. Like I'm probably a little low. A lot of people thought McDuffie was going to be like a top 12 pick, and some of the loftier valuations of him were pointing toward Jair Alexander as a reason why. And he never was Jair, but he's still a good corner prospect, and a team like the Chiefs could use a player like him for sure to get him and another first-round pick and as good as Karlaftis. That's pretty good too. Like his worst case scenario is something like Derek Barnett, but I think he's probably going to be better than that. He has a lot more in common. I know this is kind of stupid to do this, but Ryan Kerrigan, it's not just that he played at Purdue. He has almost the exact same height, weight, athleticism details as Karlaftis. So Kerrigan was a hell of a player in the NFL for a long time. Karlaftis, the freshman year, especially that he had at Purdue, was pretty rare. You don't really see that very often. And also his 40 time, I thought wasn't it running like windy, rainy conditions or something like that? So it might've been a little bit less than charitable toward him too.
Still faster than David Bell.
Yeah. Barely, but it's like a pick like that is going to help them, I think, heal from the stupid Frank Clark trade. He just sucks. It's not worth what they paid to get him or what they paid to keep him around. I think Karlaftis is more of a real deal kind of player than him. I expect him to be an upgrade, but it's not just those first rounders. I actually think they got the best inside linebacker in the draft in Leo. I guess it's pronounced Chanel, even though it's not spelled Chanel. So Leo Chanel, they should probably fix that. he's I think the best inside linebacker in the draft, and I think people made a couple mistakes in evaluating him. Basically the concern with him was he can't play in the NFL of today. That he's a 1985 linebacker who needs a Bill Parcells 3-4 and wears one of those big neck rolls or whatever, and can't turn, can't cover. So that was what people assumed about him. I think it's just plainly not true. I think a lot of the times when someone as big as Chenal, and by the way, he was even bigger at Wisconsin than he was at the Combine. At the Combine, he was 6'3", 250. At Wisconsin, he was playing more like 262 or something. So even if he showed like stiffness or like problems turning in coverage on tape at Wisconsin, you have to imagine what he's going to look like 10 pounds lighter, which is what he was at the Combine. When he ran a 4.53, had the 41-inch vertical, and he was by far the best player on a Wisconsin defense that, what was it, like probably the second best after Georgia or something like that, or top 5 anyway. Very good defense. He was clearly the best one. He's got, just A-grade athleticism in a straight line, especially in a burst sense with the vertical and the broad jump numbers. So that one thing about coverage, I don't know, shocked if he's so bad that it makes it not worth having him on the field for the plays that he definitely is good at, which is to say all the other kinds. Like he just shuts down things against the run. If you blitz him inside, he'll just throw. I mean, Linderbaum got wrecked by Leo Chenal, and Linderbaum, of course, is a good player. So I don't understand how Chenal can just win that matchup against one of the best interior linemen in his peer group, and then get to the NFL and just, he can't. Do we think he's not going to get to the backfield anymore? Do we think this just frighteningly huge and fast guy is going to look like anything other than those things at the NFL level? I don't buy it. So I think he's going to be he's going to Wally Pip Willie Gay within the next 2 years, and it's going to be Bolton and Chenal at linebacker. I don't think Willie Gay, I don't know what his deal is exactly. Maybe they move him outside.
I always thought Willie Gay was like super athletic, but I guess it just like doesn't really translate that well, or he doesn't translate it.
Yeah, he wasn't that productive in college, and maybe there was a reason.
I think he. Don't mean to slander the boy, but I think he's the guy that punched Garrett Schrader in the face at Miss State, if I remember correctly.
I don't know what that incident is.
Yeah, like Schrader like couldn't play in their bowl game, and then it came out afterward that took one right to the face. But my other note on Chenal, Wisconsin tweeted out like a video of him, and you can see in the initial thumbnail. He wrote death in Sharpie down his bicep.
That's so cool. That's such cool dumb guy stuff that I love it. Like it's not corny when it's that stupid,
Yeah.
If he was doing like Trevor Penning, like I'm a beast, I'm a warrior stuff, like that's a little corny and lame. But if you write in Sharpie death in all caps on your arm, that's just bewildering. I love it.
That's what I'm saying, man. So had to drop that.
Got that dog in him, and that's proof.
See, precisely, dude. Other teams that I thought did well, and then we'll start bashing here in a second. I thought Philly did great. I think that obviously like the AJ Brown trade is the gem of it, but they get a couple of Bulldogs at good values. I really wanted Jordan Davis on the Ravens, so for him to fall to get scooped by Philly, I thought that was a good pick by them. And then
I think he's going to be a total monster too. I think he also had the way people talked about Trayvon Walker never making plays or whatever. It's like, the defense is so good, no one ever gets a first down, so they run like 55 plays a game as it is. And then you have to compete with 6 other first-round picks to get your stats. It's like, what? Someone figure out why he might not have big numbers to figure this one out. But being 340 and running the 4.78 or whatever it is. Also, he already did a good job. It's not like he's all speculation, projection in the NFL or whatever. It's like he was holding down wide gaps that were letting those other guys like Nakobe Dean and Walker run, Trayvon and what's his name? Quay run around quite a bit with freedom. So I think he's gonna be more like a Haloti Ngata than like what's like the last bad gigantic defensive tackle pick. I don't know.
Like Terrence Cody, Rashid Hegman.
Yeah, Hagman. Yeah, he's not Hagman or Cody. He's definitely gonna be more like Ngata, I think.
I think so too. And getting him like next to Fletcher Cox, like, dang,
Oh my God.
that's that's so serious.
Even
Like
at like 32, Fletcher Cox is still probably no less than something like the 8th most athletic defensive tackle in the league or something.
yeah, he's crazy. So love that. I thought that the Nakobe Dean pick. I mean, you get him at 83. You're not quite at lottery ticket territory in the third, but when a guy as talented as him is there, I I mean, I thought that was a totally worthwhile gamble. And obviously the big story on Friday night was the medical red flags when it comes to him, but it sounds like Philly is sold enough on what's going on with his pec and everything to where it's cool.
Yeah, especially with the more generous IR rules these days. I understand it's disruptive to have a guy on your team who is good enough that you need to keep them in your plans all the time, but then they keep getting yanked out of your plans by durability troubles. I know that's frustrating on a logistical level for teams, but like, especially when you're not actually counting on him, when he's like your third linebacker at the most, or if necessary, they don't need him to be more than like their third linebacker this year. And when you're with a 4th round pick, I think it's pretty much no risk, all upside for them in their particular situation.
Totally. Yeah. Dean flies all over the field. You watch the film, like he knows, like his knowledge of the defense that Kirby Smart wanted to run was like so inside out. Like there's the famous play of him calling out the orbit motion to Blake Corum in the Orange Bowl, and he just diagnoses it, chases him all the way across the field, and tackles him in the backfield. And then there's the play close to the goal line in the national championship game where he gets on. I think it was Channing Tindall for missing an assignment. It might have been Quay actually, but he knew exactly not only where he needed to be, but where like everyone needed to be for it all to work. So like he's got it up here. Engineering degree guy from the University of Georgia. So pretty good.
Sharp contrast to Kayvon Thibodeau journalism degree.
Ugh.
Everybody with a journalism degree is stupid as hell.
I mean, that's facts, man. But
yeah.
And then I liked both New York, or I suppose technically New Jersey teams. I thought the Giants and Jets both did well. I mean, they're put in a position to where that was easier to do, but they still, I thought, like hit it out of the park with the picks that they did make. So
I was a little, I'm not going to say disappointed in the Wandale Robinson pick, but that was strange, wasn't it? I was not expecting that.
That
was
a
player.
high.
Yeah, I was really optimistic about Robinson going into the combine because he was listed at 5'11". I thought, at worst he's going to be 5'9" and a 3/8 or something like that, but he was 5'8". So that's very short. The only exception to the no 5'8" receivers allowed rule is basically Tyreek Hill, and he's the fastest player maybe ever. So I guess we'll see on Wandale. His production was awesome at Nebraska and Kentucky. So I definitely don't want to bet against the guy exactly, but him and Darden are like the two guys that are the case studies beneath Tyreek Hill. There's no other thing that we can look at to see how it's going to go. So I, particularly with some other guys that were on the board, I thought that was a strange pick, but I hope it works out.
Yeah, it was, I think, a reach. All things considered, like I definitely didn't think that you needed to take an early second on
and that's who's got to be replacing Tony, right? Like that's their Tony replacement.
I mean, the very similar kind of like
they're
the
both
things
in the
that are
slot.
good about their game.
Yeah.
Yep. Just get Wandale the ball in his hands the same way with Tony, but obviously Tony and the Giants have kind of soured it like really quickly, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I think Wandale can definitely do a lot of the things that Tony does. I think Tony's a little bit more explosive, but that's still all good. And then I did notice that the Cordell Flott pick that stuck out to me as being pretty terrible, honestly. But
yeah, so I didn't know anything about him, but I'm pretty sure the only thing I know about him is I remember him getting like, I think he was one of the guys that got beat a bunch by Kylan Hill in that one game he played his senior year against LSU. So if Flott isn't like a 4-2 guy, because he looks skinny and he doesn't really seem to do anything, if he's not like a 4-2 guy, I don't get that one at all.
No, that one didn't make a ton of sense. And I think that's a good transition to go on ahead and move to some teams that did not do particularly well with their draft hauls. who in your mind was the biggest offender on that one?
I don't know if there's a single greatest offender. I mean, I didn't like many drafts this year. It was other than the Ravens and Chiefs. I'm not sure there's any that I would call I guess the Texans did okay. But there's a lot that did badly. And I know that in a case like the Packers, it's outside of their control in a way because those receivers that we were mocking to them all offseason just never even got close to them at 22nd overall. So that was at once surprising, but also if we're holding these people account in professional capacities, they had to be ready for it. Like they had to, if they wanted to trade Davante Adams and they wanted to go into this offseason go into this draft with the personnel that they did, they can't let that happen to them. They have to be the team trading up they have to be the team trading up for, I guess, Burks instead of the Titans. And I know that it wasn't a trade up as much as a straight up AJ Brown for that pick kind of thing, but Packers still got to find a way. They have to sign somebody else. I guess if they do still sign Will Fuller or something, that would be it would at once be like a little bit light and late, but it would be so much better than the alternative that they're otherwise staring down. So I guess if they do that, to be fair, and if they trade for Waller still or something, to be fair, that would be very different than what they're staring at right now. But they're done. Like if they don't add more receivers, if they don't add like a real wide receiver one type of function in this offense, then you're getting the Aaron Rodgers of 2 years ago, which was the one that made this team, wrong or not, that's what led them to look at Jordan Love in the first place. So they're kind of like chasing the same outcome that brought them into this perilous place in the first place. Like they never should have had to trade Davante Adams. But like poor management in recent years, because of the issue of not having enough pass catchers for Rodgers, almost gets them. I'm picturing like a diagram in my head, and I'm not explaining it as well as I'd like to. But like they got themselves in this position for the same reason that they're going to fail the next 2 years, I think. And if Rodgers is only getting 2 years ago Rodgers, then they're not competing for anything.
Yeah, no, they're in that tricky spot, and that it really couldn't have gone worse.
They should have took Pickens. Like, why didn't you just take Pickens, you morons?
See, yep. So they end up with Christian Watson. That one felt like it was written in the stars, basically. After he didn't go in the first round.
I mean, he's interesting for fantasy, if only because no one else can play outside in that offense except Lazard, basically, and Watkins, I guess. But I don't know what we can really count on with that. I guess Watkins could. He's so crazy. It wouldn't be that shocking if he had like the best year of his career at this point. Like if he did some was it like an Antonio Bryant kind of career trajectory or something like that, where he had that one insane year with the Bengals that made no sense. But short of that, the only guy you can line up outside now is Christian Watson. With that said, I don't know how polished he's going to be, how ready he's going to be for actual routes and targets. So he might get a lot of decoy stuff. He might be a Marquez Valdes-Scantling with slightly better hands, but who still doesn't draw as many targets per snap as Valdes-Scantling has over the past 3 years, just because Marquez Valdes-Scantling was like 3 years older than Watson during that sample. So, we wouldn't expect, I don't think anyway, we would expect like rookie year Valdes-Scantling to step up and be what he was for the Packers the last 2 years.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. So, yeah, I think that, you can pretty easily draw out his path to targets or path to snaps. But as far as, him actually converting those snaps into getting targets from Rodgers, because Rodgers obviously like famously finicky with this guy doesn't get out of this route the way that I like it. So he is dead to me type of deal. So
they might have to limit Watson's routes to stuff, like fly routes and like play action posts, mm-hmm. and then they hope otherwise he can block well, being as 6'4", 208.
Yeah, and then I always was a Romeo Dubes fan, so I thought that was an all right pick where it was.
I could not figure him out, like I like him too, but I like couldn't figure. I was looking at the numbers, I'm like, damn, these numbers are really good. No athletic testing is hard to know, but I'm really rooting for him. It sounds like he had kind of like a rough kind of path to this point, and it would be nice to see him have some success there.
Yes, despite Marlon Humphrey's wishes, absolutely. And then So I had forgotten about Samari Torre, but I thought that was a fine 7th-round little dart. I mean, he was killer at Montana years ago. Didn't play in 2020 because the FCS canceled the season because of COVID. Goes to Nebraska last year, steps in and just immediately like leads them in pretty much every major receiving category. So I mean, like as far as 7th-round darts are concerned, I didn't think that was a bad one.
Yeah, I gotta admit, I don't know a whole lot about him. He was one of those guys that I kind of brushed past because of being a little older. His production was like you said, good, but I couldn't tell how good, and he didn't really have a great athletic testing. But he's interesting because he's lighter than most receivers that the Packers draft. Like he's kind of skinny, so I wonder if that just they saw something in him that was memorable that doesn't show up in the athletic testing or the stats.
Yeah, so that must be something there in his game that they liked, but I think he can make the roster. I don't think that he's an impact guy, barring like
get Juwan Winfrey off the roster. My God, I mean, I hope he can go scam some other team, but it's ridiculous watching the Packers put players like him and Darius Shepard on the field the past few years. Some teams just do not take their depth position scouting seriously, or they're just bad at it, and the Packers are definitely one of them. So getting Torrey on the field instead of Winfrey would be one of those cases where it shouldn't, but it might improve the offense a surprising amount just because of how many snaps they wasted last year on that guy.
Yeah, exactly. Like that he's just not cutting it out there. Before we get on to the next team, we got a message from our friends over at Dynasty Owner. Do you love fantasy sports? Are you ready for a new challenge this year? Dynasty Owner is the new way to play fantasy football with real NFL salaries, adding the strategy of running an actual front office. Dynasty Owner provides a unique and challenging experience that will test your skills as an owner and general manager. You will have complete control over your team's future. You can build through the draft, make trades, sign free agents, and manage your team's salary cap. Can you create a dynasty of champions? Sign up now at dynastyowner.com and start building your dynasty today. Next team up on the chopping block, the Niners.
Yeah, Tyrion, what's his name? Tyrion
Davis-Price.
Tyrion Davis-Price. I mean, I guess to be fair, it was toward the end of the 3rd round, but that is a guy who I would not draft in a million years. I would never pick a player like that. And the basic issue with him is his stats make clear that he can't play running back. Like he's had plenty of time at LSU to get on the field and get snaps. We've seen other players at LSU play the same position in comparable circumstances and do a lot more, including a guy like Darrell Williams even. So the other important thing to keep in mind here is Kyle Shanahan is so bad at scouting running backs. He is one of the absolute worst talent scouts in the NFL. He can only see his own vision of his like scheme playing out to the point that I think he can't see what's actually in front of him. And he just looks for things that he wants to see in certain players without actually looking at tangible details with them, such as being able to demonstrate the ability to run at all, even though you're in a generally favorable playing situation in college. And beyond that, his athletic traits are not good either. Like, why the hell would someone find Tyrion, what's his name, preferable to even a guy like Master Teague, who went undrafted? Like, at least Master Teague, even though he didn't put up big numbers either, he's huge and fast. This guy, the LSU one, he's kind of fast. Like, he's not slow, but he's not even that fast. Like, he's sure as hell not a burner, and he's upright and skinny. So he's not going to play much running back in the NFL. But they spent a 3rd round pick on him anyway. Trey Sermon was not a player I was high on last year, but he is clearly a much better prospect than this LSU one.
Yeah, I think that part of me just thinks that like Davis-Price got drafted for like one game. Like his almost 300-yard game against Florida just kind of like vaulted him into fringe draftable territory, but certainly not
so
like
dumb,
day
man.
2. Like
that's so dumb because also it's like even in that one game, it's like they were just giving up a lot of chunk yardage. Like if his speed couldn't show up on the field for a long touchdown in that game, when is he ever going to actually be a functionally fast player as opposed to a player who can kind of run in a straight line fast, but never on a football field with the football in his hands? I don't understand what Shanahan thinks he's ever doing with running backs. I mean, he drafted Elijah Mitchell on accident. He took him 3 rounds later. The whole league screwed up with Mitchell in hindsight. there was reason to think so at the time, but it's totally clear now. But yeah, he took him 3 rounds later than Sermon, who he gets him to training camp and basically right away is like, actually, he sucks. I hate him. It's like, well, why'd you take him in the 3rd round, 3 rounds ahead of the guy that's good? Shanahan doesn't know what he's doing. He's the one who also took like Joe Williams. Like, I don't even think this LSU guy is going to push JaMychal Hasty off the roster, let alone a player like Sermon or some camp invite might beat this guy out for a roster spot. So it's a bad pick. And Danny Gray is okay, I guess. That pick, I was kind of like, I was critical of it because I don't think Shanahan actually has a position for this guy. I don't think he can play in the Shanahan offense. But if Shanahan changes his offense to have more decoy functions, then yeah, Gray can do that. He's definitely as fast as the legend says. But if you're not giving him an actual role that suits him, that doesn't matter either. So we'll see. I don't trust Shanahan with anything other than X's and O's.
Yeah, no, the talent evaluation side of it continues to be a pretty substantial issue for him, and yeah, so some of those picks just we're head scratchers, and that we have a pattern established of that over several drafts now. At this point, let's get on to some rookies. That let's start with the first round guys. I think that I was looking at the odds for offensive rookie of the year, and Chris Olave's down at like the 8th or 9th highest odds. He's plus 1,100 over at BetMGM. So you have guys like Sky Moore, Christian Watson, Traylon Burks all ahead of him, and then Drake London, the odds-on favorite. But I mean, that seems like a screeching value to me, like the point where like I might just have to like drive to Tennessee again to like get that number, because I thought Olave was one of the big winners from. I thought we already thought he was great, and I think that we kind of correctly pointed out that a lot of how this rookie pecking order is going to be related to the landing spots. And I don't think that there could have been a better fit between team and player than Chris Olave. I think that this is just like an all systems go type of thing. I think that he's going to be a guy who has a path to targets right away. I know the Saints don't have the best quarterback situation, but it's still better probably than what Jameson Williams is going to be dealing with in Detroit, what Traylon Burks is going to be dealing with in Tennessee, and the list goes on. And Garrett Wilson, he's going to have a lot of competition for targets, and if Zach Wilson just keeps getting himself sacked all the time, then it doesn't really matter. So Olave, it sets up so nicely.
People don't want to see it. I don't know why. Some people, of course, see it, and others, though, it seems to be the Garrett Wilson hive. Maybe I'm slandering them, but they just are so committed to not just Garrett Wilson being some version of good or even the best, that they're like, no, he's way better than Chris Olave too. And I wonder if some of this enduring skepticism around Olave is just people standing by their prior evaluation rather than just kind of considering the possibility that they were wrong, which they are. Chris Olave is definitely about as good as Wilson, if not better. The idea that they're apart from each other is nonsense. So the crucial thing here too is Chris Olave is a lot better. Chris Olave at like 19 years old is a lot better than Marquez Callaway is right now. So I don't know if people look at Callaway and say like, oh, Olave's got competition because of Callaway and whatever, Deontay Harris. It's like, no. Mm-hmm. Michael Thomas has competition for targets now, and it's Chris Olave. Yeah. So Jameis Winston and his chucking tendencies, the spray accuracy, that's not great for real life football, for winning and getting to the playoffs, but it's fine for Olave because he's probably best unleashed by a chucker anyway. Like someone who's willing to throw downfield anyway, and Winston's definitely willing to do that.
100%. So I think this sets up nicely. And, Michael Thomas is like, he's going to, when you have a guy like Winston, it's not going to be like 2018 Saints where the ball was going to Michael Thomas every play, and it just didn't matter because he was, at that time he was so killer on the short and intermediate stuff. Like, who even knows what iteration of Michael Thomas we're going to see this year? But Olave can win at every level of the field. Not worried about that.
Olave might take over the wide receiver 1 role in this offense this year.
Yes. So I couldn't be more in on him for this year. And obviously beyond. But I think some people might mistake just because Wilson or Drake London. Drake London, I think it is sort of like what you're saying. Like for fantasy, Jameis Winston is good for real life purposes, maybe not the best. Like the Falcons taking Drake London, maybe not the best team building strategy, but at the same time, like they didn't have a viable starting NFL pass catcher on that roster other than Kyle Pitts going into Thursday night. So you go ahead and you add him, and stylistically, you have two huge guys like that can play above the rim. I mean,
I liked that pick quite a bit, actually. And the cool thing, I think it fits really well with the broader Arthur Smith project, I think, in that London's not like a bruiser player or anything. He's not some psycho blocker.
Got some breaking news. Cardinals Pro Bowl receiver DeAndre Hopkins is being suspended 6 games for violating the NFL's performance-enhancing drug policy.
Awesome. Now Cliff has another excuse for why they totally blow it this year. By the way, their draft sucked, and they were getting a lot of praise for it, which irritates me. Josh Keim is not capable of a good draft. What are you thinking? If you think it looks good, you were just wrong about something. Keim can't do anything right except I don't want to defame. No, he got DUIs. Okay, so yeah, that's about all he's good at.
So
the Trey McBride pick was stupid after the Zach Ertz extension. The Marquise Brown trade, granted, they have more use for him with Hopkins off the field, but they're going to line him up where they needed Wandale Moore to step up anyway. They're going to use Marquise Brown as a Christian Kirk replacement. He's not big enough to line up outside in that offense. Without Hopkins on the field, you're going to get more Antoine Wesley, not more Wandale Moore. So have fun with that, everybody.
Yeah. So now that you bring it up that way, and like
ass team, I'm so sick of seeing Keim and Cliff just get failing upward eternally.
It's tough seeing there. So yeah, wow. That changes things. That probably could serve as like a little bit of a tiebreaker if you're in drafts.
Oh, I love the Keontae Ingram pick though. I like James Conner, but he's got those durability troubles. If he gets hurt, Ingram to the moon, my friend. I love him. I love Ingram.
There we go. But mint that baby. But looking elsewhere, how bad is it it's just like to me, it's like a 1-year problem probably because of how things are probably going to go with Jared Goff. But I couldn't think of a worse pairing than a guy who averages less than 7 yards on his depth of throws. And then you have Jameson Williams. Like, if anything, like, I think that there's sort of like a development here where I'm a lot more interested in Amon-Ra St. Brown now as a result of this. But I think that basically Williams is an expensive decoy for this year.
Yeah, I think so too. But I kind of like it from the Lions' angle. Like, I don't like it from our angle as potential fantasy investors in Williams. But for the Lions, it's the same thing with Chark. Like, I'm a DJ Chark fan. I don't like seeing him sign with the Lions, but I understand why the Lions signed him. Like, they're leaning into the idea about, like, kind of what the Dolphins and the Jets tried to this offseason of just, what if we give our quarterback just such good weapons? Like, what if we just give him just kick-ass weapons at every rep? Maybe he'll look good even if he's not good. And it could be true. And I understand why, a bad quarterback draft class like this one would give them a little more reason towards, entertaining that premise. But it's also a little frustrating to me because it's like, well, then you shouldn't have took Sewell last year. If you weren't ready to identify someone in this draft class that you could pick to give yourself an upgrade over Jared Goff, then you need to take Justin Fields and let Sewell go. I know Sewell's a great prospect, but let it go. You need a quarterback. And Jared Goff is not going to cut it no matter who his receivers are, is what unfortunately they're going to find out. But they rationalize it probably, and they'll rationalize it at that point as, well, it was the best we could have done at the time, and at least we got good players at other positions with the picks that we maybe should have used on quarterback. And that is true. And, Chark is only on a 1-year deal, so he's more than likely going to walk after this year. So Jameson Williams is kind of Chark is just the bridge to Williams rather than like the two both clouding the picture in the long term. But as great as I think Jameson Williams is, and as much as I do think he'll do something useful even with Goff at quarterback, I had visions of that guy being like a 1,400-yard player, with someone like Justin Herbert throwing passes to him, and now we're sure as hell not going to get that.
No, definitely not. So I feel like we're doing this pod a year from now or after the season, like Jameson Williams will be like my number one buy low in Dynasty. But I think for right now, where you have to take him, I just don't really think it is going to be worth it.
Yeah, check the price in like October when he only has like 300 yards and people are starting to say, oh, he's a bust. Khalif Raymond has more yards. It's like, yeah, it's like a 6-game sample. Shut up.
You're right. Exactly. So looking forward to the roller coaster narrative when it comes to Williams.
Christian Watson's better. They should have took him. That's what someone's going to say it. All right. Done. I'm done with it. All
right. Scott wants to know if we think that Romeo Dubs, could he have some great upside? Touched on that a little bit earlier, but
he's super productive there.
Crazy productive, like it. And I thought his 2020 was better than his 2021. I thought that they, maybe overused Cole Turner a little bit this past year at the detriment of.
I'll be right back. By the way, I'm not going anywhere.
You're good. Of Romeo Dubs, but I still think that Dubs can definitely develop into something. I thought that he was a totally worthwhile selection for the Packers where they did end up getting him. Is Brian Robinson better than Antonio Gibson? No.
I hated that pick.
It wasn't good. Gibbo, things are looking a little bit tough for him, but
the internet troll Large David is just so happy these days with that Robinson pick.
He is big, but yes, I don't think that Robinson is basically like a Zamir White type. Like I just don't think it's all that impressive
I don't think he's gonna get like 200 NFL carries in his career. He wouldn't have been drafted if not for COVID giving him a 5th year at Alabama, where he was basically a backup for 4 years. He's the worst Alabama running back since like, I don't know. I'm not trying to drop names on you people, but like Shad Williams or Glenn Coffey or something like that. He's not a serious NFL prospect. He's not going to play. If you're going to be worried for Antonio Gibson and his backups or whatever, you might as well worry about Jarrett Patterson while you're at it.
Yeah,
and fair enough. I mean, maybe he will take away reps. I don't know. Like Robinson won't.
No, I don't think so either. While we're on the Alabama train right now, Mechie, 44th. Like that seemed crazy to me. His over-under was 56.5. I messaged you, I think Thursday morning being like, how crazy is this? And then I looked at your mock and you had him going, I think like 44th.
Well, that was only because the word was getting out a little. I didn't particularly expect that. I was probably a little too critical of Mechie on my initial run through. I probably wrote him off because he's clearly a level below these other Alabama receivers, but it's like, well, geez, they were insanely good. It's conceivable that, he's worth a second rounder, even though he's not worth a first, even if he's a clear level below. Moreover, it's not like he's Slade Bolden, So I think Mechie should give them some quality reps, like maybe never be a great player, but at least a glue guy.
I think he's a good football player. I just don't think that there's much to look at there fantasy wise. Like he does a lot of the dirty work. Like he was a really good like blocker and he's solid at everything that he does, but I just don't think that there's anything all that exceptional. Our guy Crackshot seems to disagree, but that's okay. That's what it's all about. But
they got Brandon Cooks.
Not quite there on that one, but and then Mechie also, obviously we talk about Jameson Williams and him coming off the knee injury, but Mechie tore his ACL in the SEC championship game. So he's a month further along in his recovery, but I mean, that's still something to, monitor. I know that I'm sort of speaking out of both sides of my mouth because I'm like, Williams is going to play week 1 and then I'm like throwing shade at Mechie, but I don't know.
He should be fine too. And he'll be like a swing backup type, I think, between the slot and the outside, and probably play something like 650 snaps or something like that at least.
Yeah. So, all right, that definitely checks out. Scott notes that about the DeAndre Hopkins suspension. So if you weren't with us earlier in the show, Hopkins suspended for 6 games. So tough times out there.
Kyler should change his mind and just say, like, actually, I do want to be traded now.
Yeah, for real.
I'm not just unfollowing, I am blocking the Cardinals.
There we go. Let's see. Treylon Burks. I think he's set up to fail. What do you think?
You do? I mean, it's a lot of pressure right away. And there were whispers about him maybe not being the most easily implemented player. Like they they probably went to great lengths at Arkansas to feature him the way that they did, and it might not quite be as easy for most NFL offenses, certainly, to feature up, to build around one player that way. But I guess if there's an exception, it really would be the Titans. And as great as I think A.J. Brown is, there is a certain level of production that he provided from routes that were rather primitive, just, like post routes, 12-yard in routes, stuff like that off of the play action. And it's like, man, it doesn't matter how bad with the playbook Treylon Burks is. If he can just do those two routes, he might be good for 800 yards in that offense. So if he can learn a third one, maybe he can really push for AJ Brown levels. But you're right, it's not like he's going to have any time to ease into it. They're just going to kind of throw him out there, and he might sink a little bit. I think he'll get there eventually, but it might be surprisingly rough for a little while.
That's my big expectation. I don't want to say that he'll never develop into something. He definitely has like the unique tools and everything. I was never quite on I felt queasy when I took him 1-1 in the rookie draft back in like February or something. But there's a reason why there's hype.
And it worked out. His upside is huge on that team. As much as there's probably a lot more risk actually than even a guy like London, just because London's just so easy as a projection, I think. But there is a ton of upside with Burks there too, if he does, have the better version of himself step forward.
So let's like break it down. So he obviously played like a ton of his snaps at Arkansas out of the slot. So I don't know if like, are they going to keep him there? They obviously signed Robert Woods too, and he's going to be mostly a slot guy. And then, I
think he'll be outside usually. Like they got that, Kyle Phillips. They're going to have to make him the Chester Rogers now, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good point. So do you think that they're just going to be like an added learning curve there when it comes to Burks, because he's going to have to like just learn how to play X?
I don't know. Not really. I do think they'll keep his routes pretty simple if necessary. And if Derrick Henry's getting those play action looks set up, Burks should be able to thrive there, even if he's well short of the AJ Brown level. But now that I'm thinking about it more, I am pretty concerned, I guess, for Burks. Like it's easy to see the upside, but the concern is pretty real for me because I think the Titans are toast. I think they're over. I don't even remember what was their stupid first round pick again. The second one. I mean, I like Burks actually, by the way, especially for the upside that I think he has. I think it's worth taking on some risk.
Was it like Roger McCreary or something?
That was actually fine, I guess. Total Vrabel pick there, but there was something else I guess I just hate that they didn't add a guard. Like they didn't replace Roger Saffold. So yeah, I think they're just kind of random in the way they approach so many things. I don't know if it's like Vrabel runs the draft, because it kind of seems like he does with the way it's just kind of like, I don't know, so meat-headed, everything they do. But I just think Tannehill's totally sucks. I think with a bad offensive line and no A.J. Brown to confuse people about Tannehill's usefulness, they're just going to sink. And they're going to play hard and be annoying, but I think like one of the more realistic outcomes is like a last year's Lions kind of thing, where it's like they're a pain in the ass to play probably, but you're usually beating them.
Yeah, that softest one seed out of the AFC in quite some time. I could pretty easily see them not making the postseason this year, especially with Indianapolis going to be better. Mark wants to know, who do we like better in rookie drafts, Tyler Algier or James Cook?
Well, I'm a James Cook skeptic for the most part, but I would still say James Cook just because you can probably move him for Algier and more stuff if you really want Algier. I like Algier too. I'm pretty high on him, I guess, probably a little higher than most people. I don't think he's as talented as someone like Kevin Harris that went around later, but and I actually have a decent amount of respect for Damian Williams even, but Algier just might be a pretty good runner, I guess it was probably somewhat due to the system at BYU, but he put up big numbers there. And even though he's slow, he found ways to get to the open field and kind of just keep distance from people. So I like his chances, but the average person thinks Cook is clearly more valuable. So you can just at the very least take him and move him for Algier and some, upgrade at a backup spot or whatever, or another.
Yeah, I don't
maybe.
love the landing spot for Cook. Like I'm
the draft capital doinks though are telling everyone like it's a lock. He's on the high scoring offense. He's a second round draft capital. Here's the historical success of second round running backs and offenses that score this many points. Like doesn't matter. He's a third down back. You remember the JD McKissick signing? That's that.
Yeah, pretty much, man. So I like James Cook, but I think you have reasons to be skeptical. I mean, he never
take advantage of his inflated market. Sell him high. He could be sold if he has so much as like a 3-catch game in October, his value will go way back up. So I'm not saying this is your last chance to sell him, but if you want to, if you see some other opportunity, take it, I say.
There it is. And then anything else to add? Any other guys that caught your eye? I mean, we would be remiss if we went like a full hour and didn't mention Breece Hall, but thoughts on Breece Hall to the Jets?
I like the pick. I was emboldened. I like it even more now that I've seen some of the worst thinkers in NFL media hate that pick because they traded up for a running back. It's good to see people who are always wrong disagree with you. And for that reason, I think Hall looks golden just as he did before. Him and Michael Carter can coexist, by the way, especially because they have a crappy quarterback who hasn't done anything good yet. So they're going to have the luxury of leaning on the ground game with volume, and it's not going to be easy for a defense to deal with those two players. So they're a much more competitive team with Hall. There's no question.
Okay, I like the pick too, and having good running backs is never a bad thing, especially like you said when Zach Wilson still a question mark at this stage. We'll end on this guy because I think that the hype is pretty. It's always been kind of crazy, and now with the landing spot, doubly so. Damian Pierce.
Well, he was in that category, that rather inclusive category of running back, where you look at him and you say, I don't really see anything that stands out exactly. I don't think he's like a day 2 pick or anything. But if he ended up playing for some team, I guess he could be productive. He's not some bum. He could probably do something. And so if he's playing snaps in Houston, I like his chances enough. I mean, I think he's better than some other running backs we've seen get big workloads in recent NFL seasons. But I don't know what to take with that team as far as trust. Do I trust them to play him over Rex Burkhead? Not at all. Rex Burkhead might be just playing better for all I know. That's a possibility too. So with Pierce, I think you're definitely chasing like the perceived opportunity rather than, talent or whatever. He's not better than some of the running backs who went after him, in my opinion. So if someone needs to believe that he's like as good as where he went to justify buying in, I would be less hesitant. But if it's just the opportunity that you care about, it's kind of hard to argue with that.
No, exactly. Like whichever running back Houston was going to take was automatically going to have their value go up just because I just think that the rest of that backfield core. I mean, you mentioned Rex Burkhead and like that. That there's a chance that things are just annoying in Houston once again, of course. But I think at the same time, that it's not that hard to see a path to Pierce getting being fantasy relevant right away.
Yeah, he's not bad, like the worst players than him have had productive fantasy stretches and even careers.
Yeah, exactly. So, so keep an eye on Pierce. Obviously, a fortuitous landing spot for him. But that's going to wrap it up for us here on the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Again, brought to you by our friends over at Dynasty Owner. For Mario Puig, I'm John McKechnie. Thanks for listening.
Try RotoWire today, free for 10 days. Get our premium tools, rankings, analysis, and breaking news alerts. No credit card required. Go to rotowire.com/.